Hello, Izumi Nation. We are back because Gundam the Origin is back. Part 2 of the Gundam the Origin OVA. Arcemise Soro has gone live. It's on the Crunchyroll. It's on PlayStation Network. And the 3 people who you count on to discuss it have certainly watched it. So I'm Nick Izumi. Sitting to my right is...
Arcemise.
Yes, he's actually in the same building.
We're all in the same room. It's so great. And sitting to my left
is Rena and Hello.
Yay.
It's so. I love that all 3 of us are in the same room again. Because it, for those of you at home may or may not be aware, Brian lives
in a different time zone.
in Michigan,
the distant land,
far enough away that there's a different time zone involved.
And we're. Most of my hangout time with Brian is done usually via Skype.
We're all playing with robots on video games.
Yeah.
Or
ranting about Gotham. But.
So it's really great. So we have Arcemise here. We just got back from a con.
So if I pass out, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we all went to DaishoCon at the Kalahari in Wisconsin Dells, and it was really fun. We had a great time.
We had a humdinger of a time. Saw some neat Gundam stuff there.
Yeah.
But we're here to talk about the new episode of Gundam the Origin. Oh.
Na-na-na.
Yeah.
Banana. Oh boy, Arcemise Soro. So like the last one, we're not going to do a summary.
Nope.
Just gonna assume you saw it already, and we're just gonna go in and discuss what we saw.
Who knew 10-year-olds were allowed on battlefields as medics?
Yeah, that was a fun part.
That's still the one thing that just blows my mind. You're 10?
Yeah, you're 10 and you're in the refugee camp treating people, which it's interesting.
Like with Sayla, it makes sense, but
yeah. Well, it was kind of ironic, just the timing of this, considering how things are kind of in the world in general. Not to get super political, but it just happened to be a huge refugee crisis going on, both in the real world and in the context of the show.
So yeah, we get to see little Arceisia, and
Also, she swims without washing herself off first. Girl, you don't know what they've been touching.
Who cares about washing hands? I'm going pool.
So, I think, I guess first thing we'll touch on is characters, because there's a bit of a time leap. There's a 3-year time leap from where we last left off in Origin Part 1. And don't worry, if you don't remember the episode,
you get an epic recap that actually shows more of the city of Mundo?
Zoom City and Mundo.
Zoom City and
Munzo.
Than you got before.
Yeah, I thought that was a waste. I thought it was dumb to recap.
Yeah, even though it's been, was it a full year?
It hasn't even been a full year. It's been 5 months.
It's like a full year.
I'm thinking they're going for the more nostalgic original Gundam feel because they were using the same music.
Yeah, they used the recap music from the original show, and that was cool. I liked that. I just was like, do we really need
I would have been fine with them moving those 10 minutes to the end of the series, into the episode for something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably talk more about that when we get towards the end.
Actually, we'll talk more about that when we get to the next episode.
Probably. Yeah.
In greater detail. But, so characters, would we like to start with our main cast first? Or
I was talking about Sayla first.
Yeah,
because Sayla's the first person we see.
She is the first person we see. And,
true.
Little Arceisia. I like pointing out, I enjoyed how energetic she was. And Sayla being enthusiastic about swimming, you really didn't get a lot of that in the anime, but in the novels, I need to stop referencing the novels because they're not canon in the least bit, but that's one of Sayla's favorite activities. That was always something Tomino intended for Sayla to be very enthusiastic about, so seeing her younger self as an excited swimmer was very humanizing.
I'm trying to remember in Zeta we get some glimpses of them, and isn't Sayla
She's hanging out at a beach.
hanging out at a beach there?
She's wearing a suit at the time, but then we do get when in the episode where Amuro goes back to the town where his mom is, she and Mirai are hanging out on the beach sunbathing. So
yeah.
Poolside with orphans.
So apparently, in the rush of getting offside 7, Sayla took time to pack her swimsuit, I guess. But
Wouldn't you?
Priorities.
Dude, you never know when you're gonna find a hot tub.
Especially in an anime.
That's fair. Yeah, in Destiny, it's on the
It's on the
Archangel.
Back to Origin.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, we get to see her. There are like two time skips within the episode, and so we get to see her when she's a bit younger here, and then also when she's growing up and going to school more. When they move
in the
to a
Texas
different
colony.
location in the Texas colony, which is also really interesting and
getting to see Texas Colony before it was a complete hellhole was really cool.
Yeah.
That basically everyone there was kind of just living in a Wild West show all the time.
And no Yul Brenner in sight. Sorry, I keep tangenting.
It makes sense though. It makes more sense that we see Shaw riding horses so often as an adult though, because apparently, as Casval, he was riding them all the time. And
yeah, really picked up horseback riding. Sayla gets to try her hand at it as well, and
with a pony.
With a pony.
He's
Who's got really derpy eyes.
It's a really derpy pony.
Derp, derp, derp.
Yeah. But the probably might stop there because part of it is just kind of her reacting to things. Of course, the title of the show is all about her.
But she really is not she's not much of an agent in this, aside from working in a refugee camp.
She mostly reacts.
Yeah.
She reacts to terrible things happening to her, which happens for most of this episode.
For most of the episode.
Casval, on the other hand, is getting really dark really fast.
Yeah. And like, we get introduced to him in its, like, with his,
crazy old man Jimba Ral.
Jimba Ral. Papa Ral.
I'm pulling up the picture of old
Grandpa
man
Ral.
screams at cloud again.
Grandpa Ral, like, telling him about, how great, his dad was and how horrible the Zeons are and everything like that, and trying to kind of, build them up to be these revolutionary leaders.
And Casval doesn't care.
He really doesn't care. But at the same time, we see he cares very much for Artesia.
Mm-hmm.
And keeps forgetting to call her. He doesn't forget to call her Sayla. Jimba does.
Yeah, Jimba is still calling them Casval and Artesia, and it's Sayla is the one who's like, no, our names are Eduard and Sayla now. Respect that.
Yeah. But Casval, like, we get to see him definitely start putting on or becoming that very cold and calculated person. I know we didn't want to talk too much about the plot, but there's a very significant attack which leads them
involves a knight's armor.
Which they alluded to.
Involves someone in a suit of knight armor.
Presumably a Zabi assassin who wanted to sneak into the Moss mansion and not be recognized. That's
very clever. Ka-chink.
Ka-chink. Ka-chink.
But
I thought it was Pyramid Head at first, honestly.
But he was able to actually fight off this assassin
by stabbing him in the face.
Stabbing him right through the eye slits. It's not eye holes or anything like that. It was sword right through the point, and
stabbing with the pointy end.
Stabbing with the pointy end. It did remind me of in that first episode where I think it was kind of intuitively knowing what the other people were feeling, that kind of new type empathy, and how he uses that is to overcome his opponents.
Mm-hmm.
So, like...
It doesn't make him sympathize with them so much as it gives him insight in where they're weak.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least, I think that's how Char would see it anyway.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And then in Texas Colony, we see him even becoming more detached from his...
all kinds of reality.
Yeah, his family with Artesia and their adoptive father.
The teacher is afraid of him.
The teacher is afraid of him. It describes him as like an unsheathed sword or dagger, more appropriately, like afraid if he turns around he might get stabbed in the back or something like that. So this is a very... He definitely kind of has, for lack of a better word, like a kind of a sociopathic... would that be right to you guys? He kind of has that very detached look of people around him. He doesn't really see them.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, it's not really. He's not really interacting with other people in a normal way. Like I think there's
everyone is beneath him.
And in a way, not in necessarily kind of a superiority, where he actively puts them down kind of thing. It's just that he just exists on a different plane, if you will.
Yeah, there's definitely other creatures in the universe that he exists in, but I don't think he sees them as people, per se. That would be my...
Or that there's at least no empathy for them.
Mm-hmm.
We see that when he picks a fight with this guy who he believes has been following them, and with good reason.
He's already had 2 attempts on his life growing up, so...
Yeah, but he I'm just gonna keep calling it Westworld, but it's Texas Colony. He just, like, completely picks a fight on a dude and almost murders him in the street.
And that's where he slips and calls Sailor Artesia.
With a stick.
With nails in it.
With nails in it.
So the plank from Silent Hill 2.
Yeah. It always keeps coming back.
I keep referencing Silent Hill 2 because Nick played it for the first time last week.
Just recently.
This is last time. It was weird.
But yeah, and then at the very end of the episode, we see him kind of abandon pretty much his entire family, really.
Mm-hmm. He leaves it all behind.
He leaves it all behind to pursue what he feels is
his correct path.
His correct path.
But what's interesting is what is the catalyst for this? Because this whole time he has been doing everything to protect Sayla, but when they receive word that Estrella, that mom died...
Oh, I was going to phrase it in... What's the one thing that makes Shuichi Ikeda change how he's going to play Char for the rest of his life? Is finding out what Char's true motivation is.
Mm-hmm. And there's mom. When mom dies, that's what sets him off.
Mm-hmm.
And you do get as he leaves, it is a lovingly reanimated Castval walking away from Artesia, just like it was in the first couple episodes of the original Gundam that they kept flashing back to with the...
Please stop flashing back to this.
It's interesting, now we're talking
they
about
even
it
use
again,
the same music, actually.
that when he finds out their mom has died, it's the only time we see emotion on his face in the entire episode.
Yeah.
He comes into the room crying, or like this just horror-stricken look on his face, while Sayla was sitting there writing her letter to her mom.
Still counting the number of times the moon has waxed and waned since the last time, which adds insult to injury and how painful that scene is.
Yeah. But another kind of catalyst that...
Followed almost immediately. I hate to say this. Followed almost immediately. Are we going to talk about Char, or are we going to talk about Lucifer?
I was going to talk about Char, but we can definitely talk about Lucifer right now, because we're covering the first 2
Char
characters.
actually happens before Lucifer happens.
This is true.
Yeah, but we don't have to do it in chronological order.
No, I'm saying what causes
Cosfall
to become
too.
Char.
So yeah, we meet Char Aznavour for the first time.
Yeah.
And he's a separate character.
He's a completely different person. With the same face.
Who's a total jerk.
He seems nice at first.
Yeah, he seems nice at first. I think he
sweet talks Artesia.
He sweet talks Artesia. When Caswell and Char first see each other, it's like two cats.
Yeah,
Two cats,
I love that.
And then you get the bro five.
Yeah, they give each other high fives. Like, hey, I'm Eduardo. I'm Char. High five.
But the thing is, he seems like a decent enough dude at first, but then we find out Mr. Aznavour has been drinking the Zabi family Kool-Aid.
He
was drowning in the Zabi family Kool-Aid.
Yeah, he comes home to dinner. He's been accepted by the Zeon Military Academy, and he's
spitting the Kool-Aid all over the table.
Yeah, he's saying all the Girin propaganda,
Oh yeah.
And in that moment, Caswell knew what he needed to do.
Probably, right then, you could see the cogs turning, as it were. His plan was forming.
And then Artesia finishes her meal, heads back up to her room, and finds Lucifer dead. Lucifer's her cat.
Yep, that's made it all the way with them since the first movie.
Lucifer is what finally makes everyone snap. It is what breaks Artesia. It's what breaks Artesia and what finally destroys Char's willingness to hold back.
And when you say Char, you mean Caswell in this case.
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to have to make that distinction and try to remember.
The part with Lucifer was really hard for me to watch because my cat.
We just recently lost a cat.
Yeah, my cat passed away from sickness literally 1 year ago. Literally a year before
before that episode aired. Actually.
Yeah.
So
and
it was
very similar to, and that really hurt.
Yeah, and one thing kind of from the more artistic side is the animation really kind of showed it in subtle ways with how the cat was behaving, and it really kind of drives it home.
Exactly what condition Lucifer's in.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, but there was a lot of effort that
put into that
behavior.
And honestly, in the manga, that behavior is still present.
Right. They did capture that pretty well from the manga. Then, let's see.
Who do we want to touch on next?
We want to touch on Ral and Hamon.
Yeah. One last thing was that the graves, they have graves for both the mother and Lucifer in Texas Colony, though they did point out they can't put...
in loving memory of the mother of Eduard and Selah.
Yep.
They can't put Estrella on it.
Yeah, for fear that someone...
The zombies are going to find it.
Yeah.
Or that someone anti-zombie is going to find it, see a Zeon...
Yeah, and I think this is a great moment to segue into Jimba Ral and what his plans were.
Jimba, crazy old man old man screams.
Jimba was like, let's go invade Zeon Colony and take them all out.
It'll feel like Grenada.
He wants a full-on revolution, and he decides to contact who we all know, all of us Gundam fans know, the most trustworthy company in the Universal Century.
I'm gonna say the most trustworthy company in mechanics ever.
Yeah, Anaheim Electronics, who totally aren't a bunch of warmongers.
3-timing during the second Neo-Zeon War.
Oh my god. So, so he puts in a call with them, and of course the zombies hear about this, and this is why Caswell and Artesia are attacked in the first act.
Mm-hmm. It just leads it all to him, and there's a fantastic scene between Diabolo and Jimbo, where Jimba is trying to put his plight. He's like, oh, come on, we can have this revolution. We can have these kids leading the way, and I've got this dream. I love that he's describing it as his own dream for this revolution.
And Diablo was like, "They're my kids. Stop that."
It's a theme that's driven home repeatedly throughout the Gundam series and technically in real life, as it were, is the old people have this dream, and then they get the children to fight for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not the ones. They have the dream, but they're willing to put someone else on the line to live it. And yeah, Tiabolo wants nothing of it, and he's right because of Jimba's insanity, he loses his home on Earth and he's forced to immigrate to space.
Yeah. And Jimbo is crazy.
Well, he's now he's
dead.
Yeah.
Yep, he can go to the gun closet in the sky. I'm sorry, he had a gun closet.
He had a gun closet. He had his fallout shelter there, ready to go. Also perfectly timed with the release of Fallout 4. We're not sponsored by anyone.
We're not actually sponsored by anyone.
We can't make those kind of things. Anyway, so
back in Zeon.
In Zeon. Well, let's talk about Tiabolo then. Before we jump to the
Tiabolo was an interesting character.
I really liked one thing.
Mr. Moss, for those who don't remember, yeah.
Yeah, he's
his first name wasn't even said.
No, it's Don Tiabolo Moss.
Oh.
Yeah, well, Don might be
Don, that's his title. Is Don,
right.
He's someone very respected, and then Tiabolo, first name, Moss, last name.
Mm-hmm. But he's I really like him as a character. We're kind of introduced to him as this fairly wealthy bachelor, essentially, when we kind of are first introduced, or when he first comes into the scene. But he's taking care of these refugees. They're just outside his mansion, and he's giving them support and everything. And when he agrees to bring these kids in as a favor to Jimba, I believe, that he owed him, that it really kind of changed. He describes how it really changed his perspective, and he understands now what being what's great about being a parent. And watching these kids grow.
He embraced being a dad full on.
Yes, in a very good, positive way.
It's the first positive father figure you see in Gundam. Well, the original Mobile Suit Gundam.
I was saying, in the Universal's entry timeline, very much yes.
And
it's gonna be a while before Cardius.
And he sits there and he will defend Char.
Yes.
Yeah, he stands up for Cosfall to the teacher. When the teacher says he's scared, he's like, "Don't ever talk that way about my son."
Yeah. One thing I did like, kind of coming from manga to animations, kind of slight things they did. I feel like in the manga he had a lot more sweat drops on his face at any given time, and it always kind of made me feel like he was always nervous or anxious about something. In the anime, I felt he was always very calm and collected. Like he really had a good grasp on things until they get out of control.
Right.
When he's out of his elements, in that respect. The guy's built like a tank, though, man. He falls out of the third story.
Yeah, of this little castle.
Of his castle, and lives, and is carted around it. But what's also great about him is that that he's willing to kind of suck up his pride, as it were. When after this big attack at the end of Act 1, he meets with Mirai's father?
Yeah, yes. Mirai's dad, Mr.
And baby Mirai.
And baby Mirai, yeah, we get to see young Mirai, and that was really nice.
And then you see baby Amuro.
That's
really
not as
acting.
Nice.
But Diabolo, he's he just wants what's best for the kids. And so if that means giving up everything he has to go live in this Texas colony where, hopefully they're not as hunted by the Zeon or the Zabi, sympathizers, that is his priority number one. It's not even his own well-being. It's where will the children be safe.
Mm-hmm.
Or safest.
And again, Texas Colony, it's a Wild West show.
It's a Wild West show, and it's right next to
Zeon. Yeah, the Zeon Nation is literally
the next colony over.
The theory was that by moving themselves, it was obvious that they were, where they were on Earth. By moving themselves very publicly to Texas colony, right next door, they were kind of putting themselves within reach as a way of saying, we kind of surrender, or that's what Mirai's father was kind of describing. It's like it's a way of showing submission, so to protect them, to prevent these other attacks out of nowhere, kind of thing. Where the Zabi family, if they feel like you're not a threat because you're right next door, they have all, they could quash you at any moment or any time they want. Essentially, means that they probably won't, as long as you don't, do anything to get their ire. So I really respected that about him. I don't see a whole lot of that in Universal Century, or at least the first Gundam series, besides our very young cast.
Right.
So this is an adult, really kind of fulfilling more of the adult role, which is taking care of the youth. So that was refreshing.
Mm-hmm. And Papa Yashima is the second nicest person, second nice dad that you actually see.
You actually, you can really see Mirai got a lot from her dad.
She carries herself just like him.
Yeah, she has very similar mannerisms. She physically looks a lot like her dad. That's not an insult, but it's very clear she's definitely her father's daughter. You would not if they, when they're in a room together, they're a family.
They don't have whites for their eyes. That's how you know. They just have the black dots.
It was nice seeing Mirai though. And hearing her talk for a little bit was kind of fun.
Definitely. That I think really wraps up. I think kind of a plot. There was a B plot going on.
There is a B plot about the development of the
back in the corner with Hamon, Ral, and
Dozal. And the Black Tri-Stars, who aren't the Black Tri-Stars yet. And they're developing the merchandising. I mean, the mobile suits. Oh boy!
By developing mobile workers that are built for just kind of hardcore labor. Intense movements and whatnot, much like the power loader from Aliens. These are just machines with a very exposed cockpit that they're like, okay.
Ranba calls it the death trap.
yeah, this is the coffin in here. But they are starting the initial tests of using these giant worker machines as combat tools. So they pin them up against actual gun tanks that are controlled remotely, but it's like, let's test what a shield can take from the Gatling burst that a gun tank has. What kind of power can go behind a punch from one of these things. And to a lot of extent, they're like, man, we can't even calculate how much force was in that punch. But Dozal recruits Ranba, who he'd gotten, was it decommitted? He got dishonorably discharged, was it?
He's considered, he's looked down upon because his crazy dad took off with Daikin's kids.
Yeah, it was known.
Yeah, they don't...
Can I just say, does it come in blue?
Yeah, it's known that his crazy dad, they don't know Hamon was involved, but they know he did.
Yeah.
And this is Dozal giving him a second chance, because Dozal's a pretty nice guy like that.
And it comes in blue.
Yeah, and they come, of course.
It comes in blue.
Of course, his unit is painted blue immediately.
But it was really neat to see, because we get him, through the course of this, he's kind of in a drunken stupor, for the most part. Or it was kind of tricky to tell if that was kind of an act. But he is picking fights.
It's okay, you get drunken Master Ranba Ral.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
picking fights with Fetty soldiers that are, part of the occupying force on the colony in the bar. And
you find out Clamp, his right-hand man from the anime, was a bartender before the war.
He starts picking the fight and he's like, Clamp, rap me.
You have to see how adorable
wraps his hands
Asaya
up.
was when she was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hamon and Estrella.
Apparently go way back, yeah.
Yeah, they go way back. Estrella used to sing at the bar that
an adorable little heart eyes Hamon was there too.
Choking on a cigarette.
Yeah.
That was a really cute. That was a really touching scene too, because you really very simply established the relationship between those two women. Hamon went to see our
You get
Estrella.
less than 30 seconds for it too.
Yeah,
yeah.
But that was the other thing is that Dozle knows how to sweeten the deal. Because when Ral agrees to be part of the mobile suit testing program, he's like, I'll sweeten it. Hamon, you can visit Estrella. No one's allowed to visit her these days, but I can pull some strings. You can visit your friend if your man will do me this favor.
and what's really kind of fascinating, even within, even Ranba knows Dozle is the most respectable,
Zabi.
The most stand-up Zabi there is. He's very much a soldier, a general, looking to crush his enemies and see them driven before him in very Conan style.
but he's going to be the guy in the front lines.
He's going to be the guy in the front lines. He's going to be the one that cares about the soldiers.
He's going to want to hang out with the soldiers.
He will hang out.
You will never see
this guy's going to be a great dad if he doesn't blow up in Big Sam.
Like Cassilia.
Oh.
Good God. Cassilia, though, she might, if she's around enlisted men, she might, acknowledge that they're in the room but tell them to go away. I can't see Giran even wanting to be in the same room with enlisted men out of fear that the poorness might rub off on him.
And Dozle's sitting there and he'd probably share booze with them.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, Dozle probably.
He's boozing with his boys.
He's the one. He actually goes personally to this bar to get Ranba and actually breaks up the fight. he's like, hey, stop doing that. Come work for me. We've got this great plan together, and you really see Ral become very passionate for it as well. And I think
gives him something to care about again because he lost so much when his dad went off the crazy train.
Yeah, and you can really see that relationship between the two men. They are the only Zabi really with any kind of honor in them, and I really see. I think that's why Ral agreed in a big way. It's like, well, if I have to work for the Zabis in any capacity,
I'll work for the good one.
Dozle is the one I would choose. And I'll stand by this guy.
Yeah, Dozle's passionate about the mobile suit program. He's passionate about, and which makes Ral passionate about the mobile suit program.
And even when he's talking about, kind of criticizing the suits themselves, he's like, man, this is a gosh darn coffin in here. There's no way that, we're just going to die. The cockpit is completely exposed. And it is literally like a tin can, one push and you're toast. And Dozle is right there. Is like, that is great feedback. We are gonna make these cockpits safe for our soldiers to use. That's cool.
Yeah.
Which is weird to say about the Space Nazi family,
but you do see that.
But you have to remember, Dozle's just the nice one. Passes human.
Right. Dozle is kind of, in kind of context, I guess you could say that he's kind of the general army of, the Germans in World War II, as if you had to go for the analogy.
And the thing is, and you also see that the fact that mobile suits even happened were this passion project. It wasn't like a sterile thing. It was this, people really, really cared about changing things, and that's really what Dozle's end goal was, is he wanted to change the balance with something, and he could see that this was going to be the balance tipper.
Mm-hmm. You could see that he was fed up with the Federation's occupation, and that he really believed in the independence movement.
Yeah.
I think those are the two key things that really set him apart necessarily from the rest of his family. Maybe not his father. That guy's
It's
hard to read
really
because he doesn't do anything.
It's hard to read Degwin.
Degwin is of all the
has
characters.
honest love for at least 2 of his kids.
Pretty much.
I think he has honest love for all of his kids, and I think that's his greatest weakness.
Ironically.
Yeah, it really is his greatest weakness, is that he's never willing to put his foot down. And of course, we know from the TV series, it's that unwillingness to put his foot down that is his undoing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's most of the characters. I'm trying to think of their other ones we'd like to...
we could briefly touch on the appearance by Amuro was silly.
We could
briefly touched on that.
Yeah.
It was but the biggest thing that stuck out to me about Amuro was it was a mistake to bring in Toru Furia. I love Toru Furia. He can still do the adult and Amuro voice. He can still do the teenager Amuro voice. He can still be Pegasus Seiya. He can still be Tuxedo Mask. But, dear God, trying to have him play, like, 8 or 9-year-old Amuro was such a mistake. It sounds terrible. It sounds terrible.
He's running around the airport with his Haro got out of the box. So that was...
It's like an
fun.
adult male voice came out of a child. Like, what happened there?
It was a cute scene, but they should have done like what they did with Casval and have a different actor play young Amuro, because that was just... It didn't sound right. It sounded really bad, honestly.
I'm trying to think of any other characters that we'd like to touch on.
Haru's voice was wrong, too. It was more male voice than a female voice.
The only other character thing I can think of was that you were saying you kept getting the Ron Swanson vibe from Ranba Ral.
Ranba Ral was very Ron Swanson in
this. Which makes me kind of wish, like, if someone wants to entertain me, please get clips from Parks and Rec and sync Ranba Ral up with them. That would just make my life.
This is the man's man. He shops at Food and Stuff.
Normally, I'm surrounded by women every day. And I'm including the men when I say that. I can imagine Ranba saying.
Like during the testing, like he's up against the guys that become the Black Tri-Stars. It's his old team. And it's great because even in their mock fights, they're like practically trying to kill each other. And then they're yelling at each other, "You were trying to kill me, are you crazy?" It's like, "You were trying to kill me." It's fantastic, but yeah, he's got that mustache that everyone around him is like an idiot kind of thing. It's fun.
See, Zeon, the Ranba Ral operation to capture to take out the Gundam to take revenge for Garma would have worked if he would have had April and Andy there. Then everything he would have had a reliable secretary and Andy Dwyer. Andy would have been one of the mobile suit pilots. Mark. Okay, we're getting way off track.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess the next thing to talk about would be the plot.
Yeah, for the plot stuff, like we go through 2 major acts in this story. We kind of touched on it. There's this younger one that ends with an attack on their home. And then when they travel to Texas Colony and kind of the events that lead afterwards, where Casval leaves and Artesia is just kind of left to deal with her pain and sorrow alone.
We would have loved that extra 15 minutes to cover what happens next, but you're going to have to either read the manga or check out the next OVA episode when that comes out to find out.
The biggest problem with this episode is that there's really not enough plot in it, I don't think.
Yeah, it's very much a transition one to get us like to cover this what was it,
like
about
Unicorn
6 years?
episode 4.
Yeah.
It's not even Unicorn episode 4 was just all action, no plot. This is just all transition to a plot that's coming later.
Yeah, and it wasn't like a big info dump or anything like that. There was certainly things and actors kind of happening, and a lot of stuff was getting covered, but it is a lot more build up to something as opposed to
things
a complete...
were happening, but no plot was covered.
Yeah.
Of
things like of great significance, like Estrella.
Estrella and Lucifer dying were it.
Was probably it, and there's a very significant moment coming up for those that read the manga. You know, we're not going to spoil it here.
But it would have been a much more dramatic and honestly a better place to close the chapter.
Because that's where the comic book ended when it was released in volume format.
Yeah, because Isoban, the version that Vertical is putting out, that's where it ends, is with the thing that we're talking about, which would have been a much more dramatic way to close the episode. And now that dramatic event is going to be the start of the next episode, which I think is going to kind of throw the pacing off.
It's going to be...
It's going to throw the tone off.
It's gonna be really weird, because it really... It's a shame that the scene, and again, it's weird to kind of tiptoe around it, but it has a lot of impact and tie-ins to the greater theme of this episode. This episode. And it just felt like not really a whimper, but it's just like, and then it ends.
It was kind of a cop-out to not do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on top of that, like, this is one of those shows where I took a look at I have this new habit of I don't watch Gundam OVA trailers because they just keep spoiling the crap out of things. But this is probably the worst one for that. I took a look at the trailer after I watched the episode. Every major plot point in this episode is covered in the trailer.
It's because nothing else interesting happens.
Really, yeah. They show the trailer has every major thing. Even the last scene is in the trailer. Mm-hmm. So it's great. It's great that they painstakingly reanimated the scene of Casval walking away from the 70s anime. It's cool that they did that. But I felt like they wanted that to be, that's good enough. That's a good place to end.
They wanted that to be the cap.
They wanted that to be the cap.
I was like, oh man, remember this? Yeah, and close.
And I don't think that
really didn't resonate.
No, it doesn't work, I don't think.
Like, yeah, it's a, rather than like a sharp bookend of it, I guess, it's the fact that he's just kind of walking away slowly. And things are kind of just fading. It's just the energy. It
putters out.
It putters out, exactly. And it's a shame, like we're saying, there is a very significant scene that immediately follows.
To that scene happening.
We were looking forward to that because it was like, man, you end right there, bam.
We were all, as we were watching it, we're like, that's going to be such a great way to end the episode right there.
And it stops, unfortunately, before. And like
it stops 10 minutes short.
It's 10 minutes short, which they really could have cannibalized that Naruto-esque flashback at the beginning to put that in there.
And now I'm worried again about the pacing. Because we were originally only going to get 4 episodes. Now, could they pull a unicorn and maybe get another episode?
1 or 2 extra?
I would like that, but as of right now, we're only getting 4, and there's still a lot. If they're going to bookend it with the Battle of Loom, they have a lot of ground to cover to still get there. Yeah. So, and they're just going to have to get through all that in the next 2 episodes now, and I'm worried.
Yeah,
I'm actually concerned.
It'll be a shame. Like we said, I think part of it is that I think since we had 2 acts within this, and just kind of a lackluster closure of the second one, like it would have been nice to have a nice solid end here. And then kicking off the next one right after that, I think, like we were saying, the manga does really well.
Yeah, well, and because in the manga that is the end of the story arc.
Because you can really jump ahead more than maybe a couple days where this event happens, as opposed to a couple of years, which you can do when you bookend it with the original finale. That said, I know one thing I always kind of look for when we're looking at adaptations of things is we look for the differences. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good.
What differences?
This one was pretty much straight up the manga.
Yeah, it was literally page for page. It was pretty much the manga.
It was spot on, which, some people really enjoy. I know I personally like it when an adaptations kind of utilize their medium to expand on it, to expound on it.
I agree, because
on
I
the
mean,
original
I own the
concept.
manga.
I've read the manga.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna reread that manga. I know it really well at this point, so why?
And my memory's really bad, and I was like watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that from the manga.
Yep, I was there.
Like the most significant thing that I could think of was the whole Diabolo's like not profusely sweating in every single scene that he's in. like that he came off as a much more confident and competent character. But yeah, it was just kind of disappointing in that respect. And I know it seems like we're probably coming down harshly on it near the end here.
It's not a bad episode.
It's not bad,
but it's not as good as it should have been.
It's not
it's
great.
Good, but it's lackluster.
I will say though, I think we can say that because all of us, we rent. You know, we rented it on PSN. I know other people are going to rent it on Crunchyroll.
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere between the standard definition PSN rental is like $3. And I think the Crunchyroll one gets a little bit more expensive. You can rent the dub. But if you're buying the only home video release of this right now are those $100 Blu-rays.
Oof.
I would be really disappointed for spending $100 on that.
If I shelled out $100 for this Blu-ray, I would be
pissed.
Yeah. This is.
I even noticed like on PlayStation Network at the time that I had purchased it, it had like a 3-star rating. Actually, like the feedback is coming in. People, I think, were not as impressed with this outing as they had hoped it was going to be. I think it's part of the reflection. Those familiar with the manga were expecting this other end. I really think if that other ending had been in here,
it would have improved it dramatically.
Yeah, it would have been. It would be night and day. And the first episode was so good. It knocked the ball out of the park, and then this one just kind of. I mean, it
puttered.
Yeah, it didn't do bad. Like it still did well, but it didn't do as well as it should have.
And it got a lot of the emotional parts that it really wanted to touch on done. Especially focusing on Arcemise, and her, as her life kind of crumbles around her, or the life that she knows it. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where you can see the potential in something, and your disappointment derives from that you feel it didn't reach that potential, that it just kind of ran out of steam.
That's a perfect way of putting it.
Near the finish line, decided to walk the rest of the way, or walk away, as the case is with Castle.
I'm gonna say saunter slowly in the direction of something interesting. As
it slowly morphs into this like water painting thing, and Artesia must be like going crazy or getting sick or something like that. But
something. Look, we used the music from the original. Isn't that amazing?
And yeah. It really could have hit the ball out of the park. So far, they got to second base, I guess, is kind of what it feels like. For the baseball metaphor that you were all wanting.
Because it feels like an unfinished story.
Yeah.
It feels like a very unfinished. It feels like an unfinished episode. It's like,
you're gonna end there?
That's a really, really terrible place to end, you guys. Just so you know.
Did you guys read the manga?
Did you?
But yeah. So that. I don't know, is there anything more for the plot side of things that we'd like to talk about?
I don't think so. I think that really hits what we need to talk about plot-wise. Is there anything else you want to touch on, or?
Animation. We've kind of spoken to it already with the quality. It's definitely still there. The animation is fantastic.
Still looks like Yasa's drawings, which is great.
You can flip through that volume and just find the storyboard.
The mechs in it, I know they got a lot of criticism, especially for that first sequence in the original episode, that the CG was used not to the best of its ability.
And this one, I think it worked better.
It worked a lot better. There was much more of a slow, deliberate pace to the action that was happening.
The mobile workers looked like they had weight.
Yeah.
Like
in space.
And their CG was more cartoonish stylized.
Yeah, it meshed with the rest of the animation.
It looked more like they got the the rigging from the Transformers Devastation than
Yeah, it looked consistent. It didn't
not
look
rigging, but you know what I mean.
It didn't look
mapping.
otherworldly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It didn't look otherworldly. Yeah, I appreciated that, and it wasn't going by too fast for me to care.
Yeah. So that, I think, is definitely a standout. Music side of things?
I did, despite the fact that I
didn't notice it.
I loved the use of the original series soundtrack.
The English song in it.
That Hamon sings. That
Hamon
was
sings.
nice.
There's a beautiful song that Hamon... was it Hamon singing, or was
Yeah,
it
it's
Hamon
Hamon
singing?
singing.
I couldn't
I was
remember.
happy she was singing in English, quite honestly.
Right. Yeah, and you know,
Because
that's
it
something
would have
that
been one of
doesn't...
if it would have been one of those hacky like other like directors, they would have done it in German. Because Xeon are Nazis, you guys. Do you get it yet?
And it was a really well done English song.
Yeah,
like
it was
wasn't
really nice.
it wasn't a lot of kind of English. There wasn't a lot of accents that necessarily got in the way of the song and the melody of it.
It was jazzy and timeless.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that.
Yeah, and
It
that's...
was something that belonged in a bar.
And
in
within
a
a
smoky
film.
bar. Yeah, I know.
And within a film, that's an adaptation thing that we can appreciate, is the addition of sound. So that was really nice. I like that part. What was it? The closing theme.
I don't remember the closing theme.
I don't
almost
really
at all.
remember it either. Probably because we were thinking so much about. Wait, you're ending it there?
Most of ours was concern over the ending.
Yeah. So I can't. It wasn't. Unfortunately, it just wasn't memorable.
Yeah, unlike the last one, the sad song they played at the end of the first episode was haunting. Even Shuichi Ikeda actually said he thought the song from the ending of the first episode was really good.
Yeah, so that's kind of an unfortunate side of things, but again, not bad, but unfortunately not great. Not.
And it should be great.
It should be
we saw
great.
the first episode was great. There's no, if they just would have gone that extra 10 minutes, it would have been perfect. And that's what hurts it the most.
Yeah.
Is that the potential is there. Anyone who reads the manga knows the potential is there. And anyone who hasn't read the manga will just be like, well, that's a stopping point, I guess.
I guess we're taking a break for another
You
few
could
months.
do it there. There's 5 more pages after that, but you could do it there.
So yeah, let's see. Any other things we'd like to speak to? Hopes for the future?
Well, I mean,
I hope there is death.
how many, what, I know you've read through book 5, which is what was covered here. Have you read book 6 yet? Or?
I got a little ways through it. I forget where I'm actually at, and I suppose saying it on the podcast would reveal what happens.
I'm gonna say this much because I mean it's pretty well known that we are going to get Garma.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get the beginning of the Char and Garma relationship, and
Not gay.
sure it's not. I really love like finding out more about how that specific relationship came about, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they play Garma.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting, I think.
Because he's an interesting character. I really do think Garma's a tragic little person.
And I think it'll be really important for them to kind of establish and really, for lack of a better phrase, sell that relationship.
Yeah.
Because that is Garma's undoing in the long run, is how much he trusted Char. And so I think it's really important that, and it's the tricky part of doing a prequel, is having that, having to meet that requirement then, that it has to be at that stage by the time we get back to...
If anyone else would have written the manga that this series is based on, I don't think I would care for it. But because it's Yas, because it's this guy who was so involved with the creation of the series and the characters and the universe, I think it works.
Yeah.
There's even aspects of this story that I think in the hands of any other storyteller I don't think would work. But because it's Yas, because he was so integral in the creation of Gundam, I think that's why it works.
Yeah.
Prequels are a dangerous thing.
Prequels are dangerous. But yeah, I think
because you can retroactively ruin great things with a prequel
can.
really easily.
You really can. Then what I think, what I'd like to see, and I think is going to be important, especially what we're talking about with the 4 episodes. We've got 2 down already.
Yeah.
So we're halfway there in number of things that we've got coming left. I hope they don't waste a lot of time on the recap. They're going to have to dive headfirst into this climactic moment at the beginning.
So that we can get to the stuff with Garma.
Can get to the stuff with Garma. And I really...
And this climactic moment has to happen, people.
For those
who don't know, it has to be there.
And I think it'll be important for them to probably cut some of the scenes that are in the comic to make sure that we end kind of on a more, again, definitive note. A note with closure.
In the manga, there's a lot of subplots with like Amuro dicking around inside 7 around the same time.
Stuff that we don't necessarily
need that. I hate saying that because I love Amuro, but we don't. If we're going to get a cohesive narrative, we can't cut over to what was Amuro doing dicking around on side 7.
Right. That can be when they make Gundam the Origin, the Amuro story, or something like that.
Or if they were to decide to do straight up reanimate the original series based on the manga, then they can do that. But for right now,
yeah, I think they've kind of written themselves into that corner where it's like, man, we've got a lot of content to get through if we go straight from the source, and so this is where adaptation part of it is very important. It's like, okay, we've got to trim this down. We got to make it lean and strong, and instead of fluffy and full necessarily. So that I think is going to be really important. It's going to be really tricky to have that climax at the beginning and not suffer from just kind of falling action that just kind of putters out again.
Yeah, because it's hard to have anything as climactic as what they're going to need to start on. Like, how to balance out episode 3. That's what I'm going to be worried about.
Yeah. Do we have a release date for the next episode?
I think it's spring.
Spring?
No specific date yet, but I think they said spring. So. Okay. Let's make it through the cold months, and hopefully there will be a new Gundam waiting for us at the end. In the meantime, we've got Iron-Blooded Orphans, which we're not podcasting on that right now, but go watch it.
You should go watch it, and if you haven't, check out Build Fighters and Build Fighters Try.
There's plenty of Gundam to keep you entertained in the meantime, because all of those are highly recommended by all 3 of us, actually.
And if you'd like us to do a podcast on Gino
Reconquista,
leave a message in the comments. We certainly have some opinions on the show.
Arcemise and I have
if you can tell by how they're talking.
Arcemise and I have certainly watched episodes of it.
We have certainly watched episodes, and to their credit, they finally brought it back after restricting it from our country for the longest time.
Now it's on Hulu. So it's on Hulu. So it's on an actually decent video platform.
Yeah. So we can watch it again, which is kind of nice in the fact that we have access to it. Whether or not we're actually gonna keep watching it, it's up to you guys. Actually,
yeah.
If you'd like us to check it out and share our thoughts for the whole series, as opposed to maybe the first Were we even on episode 4?
I don't even think. I think no. We got through episode 4 because that was the first one that had a cohesive beginning, middle, and end.
Right.
Remember?
Yes. Yes, that is right. And we got to see how they poop in the mobile suits again.
Mm-hmm.
That was important.
I needed to know that.
We didn't get that in Gundam the Origin, Nick.
Well, obviously, 30. We've gone upwards of 35 years without knowing how people poop in Gundam. It had to come up eventually. I'm glad to know.
But
no, I'm not.
But we'll certainly check it out if that is something you, the viewers, the listeners, would like.
In any case, I hope you enjoyed finding out the misfortunes of one's youth. With me, Rena Innocenti.
Me, Arcemise.
And your all-time buddy, Nick Izumi. From all of us here at the Fifth Avenue Studio, keep on spocking.
In the free world.
Woo! Have a good night.